What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran. I help people using a spiritual perspective. At least I try to. And I want to talk about how you have no control over your own life. Isn't that a nice topic? It's pretty good, right? Well, there's this idea in modern New Age spirituality that you can control your reality. Wow, that sounds really great, doesn't it? Through the power of your own thoughts and your imagination, you can control all the things that happen on the outside. Wow, who knew it was that easy? Well, of course it isn't that easy. That's all bullshit. It's nonsense. But the idea itself, well, it comes from something that isn't nonsense, or it comes from a half-truth. There's a lot of half-truths going around, but the idea is, let's break it down to its essence. This idea is that if you remain positive enough, or if your thoughts are aligned enough with, in a specific direction, then you can see that happen on the outside. So an example of controlling your own reality would be, well, I'm going to make, my ex came back, my ex is coming back, my ex has already come back, repeating this sort of, these phrases in your mind. That's just one example. It could be a job, it could be a passion, a hobby, it could be things that you want. You want something on the outside, right? And through the power of your thoughts, your mind, your mental aptitude, you can get all the things that you want. So it starts with an idea, a half-truth. And the half-truth, of course, is that the more positive you are, the better chances that your life will go in a direction that makes you happy, or that you get more of what you want, right? That you have a better relationship with the world around you. So the more positive you are, which we're talking about our thoughts in this case, then the more positive your life will be. And that things will be okay, right? Well, things will always be okay, that's fine, but the idea that you can actually control everything that's going on outside of you, no. And I can prove that that's complete bullshit right now to you. Have you ever tried to replay a conversation, or not replay, but have you ever tried to come up with those hypothetical conversations in your brain, like how this will go when you see that person? It could be an argument, it could be with somebody, it could be a crush. This is what I'm going to say, and they're going to say this, and it's going to be so cool, and I'll be like really funny or whatever. Okay, all these examples. You usually do it in the shower. That's when I have these little weird conversations with myself, and then when you actually get to those moments, when does it actually ever work out like that? Like 0 times does it ever work out like that. Like barely any times. Because that's not real. That's not based in anything. So the idea that you can just summon up all these thoughts and then create some reality for yourself out there, that's nonsense. It's not real, because if you can't do it with other people in conversations, then why should you be able to do it with things or places? That's not real. It's not a reality. And it's not a reality because you can't control other people's actions. And you can't control the weather, for instance. I mean, this New Age sort of spiritual crap, it really has to go. Like, it really does, because it's trapping a lot of people into making bad choices. Because they just think that, well, if I'm positive enough, then it doesn't matter that I just quit my job, or, it doesn't matter if I moved halfway across the world for some boy or girl. It'll all work out, because it's supposed to, because I can control my reality. I can control the outcome of things. But you can't. You can't. If you can't do it with the weather, and humans can't do it with the weather. I mean, we've progressed a lot as a species. I mean, like a lot. Like, we have TikTok. We can leave comments on, videos while taking a shit on the toilet. Like, wow, we've come a long way. We have medicine and stuff. People don't just shoot you in the head and get away with it most of the time. There's just like a lot of stuff. We've progressed. We have bidets. Right? You know what that is? The thing that washes your bum after you poop. They have those. Not really in the States, but the point is, we've come a long way. But we still can't control or predict the weather. Right? We have these ideas of the weather, but you're not stopping a hurricane, and you can't really predict an earthquake, and a forest fire is, half the time barely manageable, okay? So we can't even do that. We can't control what other people are going to say. We can't control what their actions are going to be. And yet people, always anecdotal, will claim that they can. And it's always the same people. It's always the ones that are trying to sell you it. It's always them. But the reality is we have no idea what kind of things are happening behind the scenes to even get people sometimes when things work out, right? Because sometimes things do work out. Sometimes you say this is going to happen and it does. And that's great. And nobody should take that away from you, not even me. But to have that attitude with everything in life is dangerous because you can't control everything in life. You can't control everybody in life. You can't control all of it. It just wouldn't make sense. So I'm of the belief that the things that are going to work out for you, number one, are always going to happen anyway, so there's nothing you can really do about that. But that there's inspired things that belong in our life and things that don't belong in our life. And usually the difference is the awareness that you have about them. Okay, so an example of that would be, when I was really when I believed more in tarot and what it would do for others. And that when I was just sort of more passionate about it. Started off this YouTube channel was mostly doing tarot readings. Twin flame readings, in fact, most of the time. And then I stopped really resonating with helping twin flames because I felt kind of like an alcoholic or a bartender giving an alcoholic, more alcohol. So I started to see tarot readings not as the most helpful thing that I could do for people. And kind of around that time of the awareness, just stopped getting tarot readings. Well, makes sense, right? I mean, if I stopped caring or believing in their efficiency or effectiveness, then why should they actually, why should anybody book with me? Why should anybody get a tarot reading with me? Why should any of that happen, right? And it makes sense. So it became less and less and less because I had the awareness of it. So even if I said to myself, and I have before, if I needed money or something, say, let me get a tarot reading. I could do this service for someone. It's not a wrong thought to have. It's natural service, right? Anybody in a position that was broke, let me get a job so I can pay. Okay, so if I was low on cash, please let me get a tarot reading. This will work. This will happen. This will do it. But it doesn't have the same effect. Now that might have worked back when I believed in tarot readings, back when I really had a passion for it. But then when you remove all that, and I'm aware that it's not the deepest level of helping people, that it actually causes a lot of people anxiety, that it's actually not as helpful as I once thought it was. Well, once that, you can't get rid of that awareness. So of course it's not going to happen. It's like when you're still so focused on your ex, you're still so focused on them, and you try to get them back. And sometimes, you can get them back. You can the power of your heart and your mind and all this shit, you can get them back into your life because you're not really aware of all the karmic presence that they brought into your life, of how bad they might be for you. You haven't met anybody else yet who changed your mind, who's like, this is what a romantic partner should be like, or you haven't grown enough. Okay, so then you can actually, sure, you can get those people back into your life. But then what happens when you're past it, right? What happens when you have the awareness? Suddenly those things don't come. Suddenly you can't control those things. So it's a dangerous idea to present to the world that you can just control all of it. You can't do that. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes there's other things going on that you don't know is actually responsible for some of the things that are happening. Like, you just don't know. It's like you don't know what your bad luck is protecting you from. Right? And a great example of that is, the guy, it's a true story. There was a guy who was going to go on his flight on 9/11. He's supposed to meet he had a meeting, a pretty important business meeting. And he missed his flight. So from him, it's like, oh God, thanks, universe or whatever. And then they crashed into the towers, right? 9/11, okay, that's what happened. So, him missing his flight saved his own life. And that's just an extreme documented example. But there's tons of little examples like that. And half the time we're completely ignorant to what might happen because he only knew that would be bad luck because of what eventually would go on to happen. That was the worldwide news. But, you never know why things don't work out in small, detailed ways. Maybe the reason that you were late and the store was closed is because they wouldn't have had it anyway, so you would have just wasted your time. Or maybe the reason, why this got canceled or this didn't work out was just to protect you from a small little insignificant thing. Or maybe even a bigger thing. But half the time we have no idea. And so in that vein, you clearly have no control. You have no control over the things that might happen or might not happen. And if the things that don't happen protect you from something, half the time you have no idea. And sometimes you go through things that do not feel very good, that do actually hurt you in some way. And you think, well, why did I go through that and this, that, and the other? But you couldn't have controlled that anyway. So there's very little control that we have. And even I would argue you don't really have that much control of your actions either. I mean, the concept of free will is like, you can debate free will for a long, long, long time. Like there's a lot to get into with free will. Like just a lot of stuff. And I'm not going to get into that. But, really, what are we like? We have an awareness of things. So the best we can do is control our awareness or control our responses to things. Like, how much we are in touch with ourselves, because those actions we can take towards ourselves every day, right? So the idea, like this new age idea that we can use our thoughts to control everything, that we can make this outside world match, it's not good, it's not healthy. The outside isn't supposed to reflect the inside anyway. That wouldn't make sense, because the whole point, of course, is to rise above your challenges, to rise above situations, right? So to say that everybody who's in a situation that isn't ideal is somehow their own fault, a reflection of what's going on inside of them, that's not true. Most people in the world are poor and impoverished and can barely eat and drink clean water and don't have the same access to things that we do. The law of attraction is a pretty fundamentally prejudice, ignorant way of looking at things. And so this idea that you can control everything that happens is it's not helpful. It's not ideal. Some things you can get. You should try and get them. The things that are meant for you are going to happen. But you can't control other people's actions. You can't control what's going to happen out there. That's codependent. It's codependent to think that your inside is directly attached to everything that goes on out there. That's a lot of shit that you're suddenly responsible for. You're responsible for a lot of things if you think that's true. And that's a lot of pressure. I don't think you need that much pressure. And then what makes you so special? It's sort of like when people, basketball players or sports, football players, they'll pray to God when they make a, basketball shot. You see a lot of people go to this, oh, God got me one or whatever, or I prayed to God before this game. And it's but why did God listen to you and your team and, didn't listen to the other people praying to the same God? Who is it? The people's faith is stronger? No, of course not. It's a basketball game. There's a lot of freaking factors that are going on. So it's not really just about how much you believe in something. There's a lot of factors going on and stuff like that. So it's the same thing in our life. You can't just pray to God the hardest or have the most positive thoughts about something and it will all work out, because that's not how life works, right? And you can see that in so many examples. Again, sports is just one of those examples. You got everybody basically praying or thinking positive thought, I'm going to win, I'm going to do this, we're going to get this. But eventually some team has to lose. Someone has to lose that game. It doesn't just, it's not soccer. Someone has to lose it. So no, you can't control all this shit. You can't make people respond the way that you can in your head, because you're controlling all that in your head. Your head is where the idea of control is. It's so the idea that, sure, the more positive you are, it's great, it's better. But that idea, when you get it into your head and you start attaching these sort of new age labels to it and stuff, your natural ego, your natural ability, or your default to control things, that starts to take over that concept. And then you start to unwillingly apply it to life. And eventually what happens is you'll become very disoriented, disillusioned, and disappointed. And that's what happens to a lot of people who start believing in these ideas, these new age ideas, at the start of their spiritual journey, because they're very popular, very chocolatey. You take all these ideas, and a year and a half down the line, you will end up in a ditch. Not literally, hopefully, but metaphorically, you'll end up in a place where you're like, God, how did I get here? Well, you got there because you believed a bunch of nonsense. And that nonsense, nobody's taking responsibility for. Not enough people are challenging it. Not enough people are admitting, yes, the good ideas, but that it's gone too far, that it's taken over people's minds. People have gotten to the idea where they don't have to do anything. because it should all just happen automatically. But that's never, ever been the case, ever. And it will never, ever be the case also. So, because why would it be? Why would you ever think that you could get everything you wanted just because you said that you wanted it? Just because you believed it to be true? How do you know that the 20-year-old version of you or the 25-year-old version of you knows what's best for the version of you 2 years down the line or even 2 months down the line? You have no idea, right? You could be trying to get somebody in your life that you have a crush on or something, and then you try so hard, you have all these law of attraction to use them into your life, and then you find out that they're not, they're in a relationship, or that there's something about them is just not good for you. Okay, so it's like you have no idea what's best for you. We're not good judges of what's good for us, what we actually want, because what we want changes over time. What I wanted at 27 is not the same as I want now at 29. Different shit. And obviously not at all the same as what I was 20. And it won't be the same when I'm 31 or 32 or 35. And I don't know if I'm going to live that long. I mean, I don't. Do you know that you're going to live to be, next year? You have no idea. So, the idea is it's just so many, it causes so many problems, so many delays, so many ideas. No, of course, it's popular because it makes you think that you don't have to do anything, right? But it's not about that. It's not just about having positive thoughts. There's tons of examples of people who have made successful careers for themselves who never believed in themselves at all. Noam Chomsky, I would look up him if you're interested in just somebody who literally did their own thing, never gave a shit, and never changed at all, who became famous. That's a great example. He didn't give a shit. And, you look at all these actors and we all want to say like, oh, well, this actor believed in the law of attraction and that's why they became... No. They became an actor because they fucked somebody. Well, that's extreme, isn't it? Well, they became an actor for many different reasons. Probably because they have talent. Sometimes because, they knew somebody. Other times, because they had sex with their way in. Sometimes, bribery. There's lots of stuff going on. There's luck. Tons of stuff. Right? But not everybody who wants to be an actor is going to be an actor, right? It has nothing to do with the law of attraction or how much you believe in yourself, because if everybody was, wanted to be famous and everybody on earth was famous, then nobody would be famous because everybody would just be. So there would be no famous. So, the idea that we're supposed to be like this, get this, do that, have that, control this, manifest that, you gotta just take a break from all that stuff at some point, because it's gonna just bring you down. It brought me down, really caused me a good year of grief, I would say. The short term it works wonderful. In the short term it works amazing. 3, 4, sometimes even 6 months, you can really you can get a lot done with that. But then inevitably you'll crash and you'll end up in that sort of aforementioned ditch that I was talking about. So all I'm really trying to tell you guys is to take a break from that. Don't think that you can control everything that's going on out there. You can't. Some things you might feel you can control, and that's wonderful. And the more positive you are, that's great. And yes, you shouldn't have to work so hard to get what you want. There's a lot of stuff going on. You should be able to receive. Things don't have to be that hard. When you're in the flow or you're aligned with things are not supposed to be that hard. But they're also not supposed to happen overnight. And anything worth creating, worth striving for, it wouldn't mean anything if it happened tomorrow. So, in that vein, everybody should just stop trying so hard. Stop trying to be positive. Stop trying to be this kind of version. Stop trying to control all that shit. And just be okay. It's all okay.